The story begins by showing a young man named Jared. He was the son of the creator of a revolutionary replacement robot that had become ubiquitous in society. These robots had become so commonplace that almost everyone owned one, with the original person lying on a controlling chair while the robot took care of their physical needs. Jared had just arrived in America and was looking for some entertainment at a nightclub when he met a beautiful woman. However, things took a turn for the worse when someone shot him with a mysterious weapon while he was alone behind the club. Jared managed to escape, but both his replacement robot and the woman were severely damaged in the process. The police arrived at the scene and FBI agent Tom, along with his partner Peters, were tasked with investigating the incident. They noticed something strange about the damaged robots. The chip and some components of their bodies were burnt or charred, indicating that they had been shot with an unusual weapon. The only data obtained from the robots belonged to women, leading Tom and Peters to investigate the woman's residence. However, things took a confusing turn when they discovered that the woman was actually a fat man. Even more surprising was the fact that the man was already dead, with blood pouring from his eyes. Normally, the death or malfunction of a replacement robot should not have a direct impact on the user. This led Tom and Peters to conclude that the weapon used by the perpetrator was a dangerous and mysterious one that could cause both the replacement robot and its user to die simultaneously. After a long day at work, Tom returned home, where he lived with his wife Maggie. However, what many people didn't know is that Tom was actually Bruce Willis, who had a beard and used a replacement robot almost all the time. He used the robot because he wanted to be able to communicate with people like a conventional social creature in general. The next day at the office, Tom and Peters received some important information regarding the original body of Jared, who was found dead in the same condition as the fat man they had encountered earlier. They were assigned to the case to find out what kind of weapon could kill a replacement robot and its user simultaneously. Without wasting any time, Tom and Peters headed straight to Dr. Cantor, the father of the creator of the replacement robot as well as Jared's biological father. However, they couldn't meet him in person and instead had to speak to one of his replacement robots. Dr. Cantor was the creator of the robots, so he had several replacement robots with different variants that he could use whenever he wanted. Before leaving, Tom mentioned the possibility that the culprit may be someone who doesn't like Dr. Cantor or an enemy, causing the doctor to feel guilty to the point of breaking down and crying. Tom and Peters then headed to the VSI company, the manufacturing center of all replacement robots in the world. They found a military robot that had suffered the same condition as the case they were handling, with a burnt chip on its head. The chip was known to have disappeared before they brought it back, so they decided to meet with military officials to find more information. Despite their efforts, they were still unable to determine the type of weapon used by the perpetrator. They believed that the weapon was most likely developed by the military, and only a few people knew of its existence. Eventually, Peters managed to obtain the face and license plate of the perpetrator, who was identified as Miles, a man with a criminal record who had just been released from prison. With the help of a computer expert named Bobby, Tom was quickly informed of Miles's current location. While Tom headed to the scene to catch Miles, Peters stayed behind with Bobby to see some of his skills, including the ability to disconnect a replacement robot from its user with permission from the headquarters. Tom then rushes to the scene of the pursuit via helicopter, arriving just in time to witness Miles being cornered by a group of officers in a dead-end alley. Suddenly, Miles whips out the dangerous weapon and uses it to devastating effect, leaving all the officers dead. Tom immediately senses the danger and quickly disconnects from his replacement robot to ensure his safety. After reconnecting to his replacement robot, Tom notices that one of its hands has been severed, presumably from the earlier conflict. Determined to catch the perpetrator, Tom begins chasing Miles, who is trying to flee the scene. The pursuit takes them through busy streets and bustling crowds, with Tom relentlessly pursuing Miles. Despite his best efforts, Tom is unable to apprehend Miles, who manages to evade him at every turn. As they near the edge of the city, Miles suddenly turns and fires his weapon directly at Tom's replacement robot, causing one of the bystanders to panic and shoot at the robot as well. The robot is destroyed, and Tom is critically injured in the attack. Tom is quickly rushed to the hospital, where he receives emergency medical attention. After Miles escapes with the dangerous weapon, the Prophet and his team become involved in the investigation to uncover who provided Miles with the weapon. Meanwhile, Tom's superior Andrew informs him that he's being temporarily dismissed from the case due to his actions in the anti-human population zone with a replacement robot. Feeling desperate to continue the investigation, Tom meets with Peters, who suggests he purchase a new replacement robot. However, Tom has difficulty finding a suitable robot that matches his character. Desperate to find Miles, Tom decides to venture into the Prophet and the anti-robot replacement territory. He is granted permission to enter but is unaware that Miles has already been killed by the Prophet himself. Tom is then ambushed and attacked by the Prophet's men who refuse to give up the dangerous weapon. Despite his injuries, Tom manages to escape the attack and returns to the hospital where he receives treatment for his injuries. While recovering, Tom is informed that Miles has been killed and the dangerous weapon is still missing. Feeling frustrated and determined to solve the case, Tom decides to investigate on his own. He eventually discovers that the prophet is the one who provided Miles with the weapon and is keeping it for himself. When he came home, Dr. Cantor uses a replacement robot with a physics minor to communicate with Tom. He urges him to stay focused on the case that killed his son and get the dangerous weapon before it causes an even bigger disaster. When Tom arrives home, he finds his wife and friends using a stunning tool that has the same effect as alcohol, which he cannot stand. Despite the risk of injury, he impulsively beats one of his friends. Tom then confesses to Dr. Cantor that he just wants his wife Maggie to look like her real self so that they can communicate like human beings. Maggie is upset by the fact that she cannot accept her original physical age and has scars on her face, causing Tom to feel frustrated and hopeless. Meanwhile, a mysterious man breaks into Peter's house and kills the real Peters. The man is revealed to be Dr. Cantor, who takes over the replacement robot Peters for a specific purpose that remains unclear. Back to Tom, who meets with an army colonel. He reveals that the dangerous weapon was created by the VSI to end the war with a single shot. However, the military rejected it as too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands. Despite this knowledge, Tom's wife Maggie continues to use her surrogate, addicted to the freedom it provides her. Tom is horrified by the potential disaster that will come with the use of surrogates and tries to warn his wife, but she is too addicted to listening. Meanwhile, the prophet and his team are invaded by the military, who have discovered that the dangerous weapon is in their possession. However, they discover that the prophet is actually a surrogate controlled by Dr. Cantor, who created surrogates but now regrets ever having created them. Dr. Cantor was dismissed from VSI, the company he originally worked for, and wants to stop the creation of surrogates as he believes it takes away from what it means to be human. In the FBI office, Dr. Cantor has taken on Peter's body and is searching for salary files for all employees. When he meets Tom, Dr. Cantor reveals that their boss, Andrew, is the one who sent Miles with a dangerous weapon. Tom decides to confront Andrew at the FBI office to uncover the truth behind his actions. Andrew denies any involvement, forcing Tom to take drastic measures to shut down his replacement robot and extract a chip containing all the data in his head. However, Tom doesn't realize that the person beside him is actually Dr. Cantor in Peter's body. After examining the data, Tom discovers that Dr. Cantor was fired from VSI because he opposed the Surrogates project and had created a character named the Prophet to recruit people who shared his views. VSI, on the other hand, had been successful with the project and wanted it to continue. Dr. Cantor worked with VSI to assassinate Andrew, who was the FBI supervisor, using the dangerous weapon. Miles was a criminal who had been manipulated into carrying out the mission but died instead of his son. However, Dr. Cantor targeted the wrong person and is consumed by a desire to find out who is responsible for his son's death, leading him to kill Peters in his quest for answers. Dr. Cantor realizes that his scheme has been exposed and decides to eliminate Tom to cover his tracks. He causes a car accident, but Tom survives and tries to pursue him. However, Peter's body is a replacement robot, which makes it difficult for Tom to catch up. Unable to disconnect the robot Peters due to the threat of a gun, Tom seeks out the real Dr. Cantor to convince him to stop. Meanwhile, Andrew has reconnected with his own replacement robot and is attempting to persuade Dr. Cantor to give up his plan. However, consumed by his desire for vengeance over the death of his son, Dr. Cantor shoots Andrew with the advanced weapon. Now in possession of the dangerous weapon, Cantor connects it to Bobby's computer server, which is linked to all the replacement robots worldwide. The weapon system utilizes a virus that can damage the robot system and kill its users. Cantor's plan is to send the virus to all the replacement robots, thereby eliminating their users. Return to Tom, who has arrived at Dr. Cantor's place. He enters the dark and eerie residence of Dr. Cantor, who had been waiting for him. As Tom enters the room, he sees various spare bodies of the Prophet and other replacement robots. Dr. Cantor informs Tom that he has already sent the virus to all the replacement robots, and the delivery process is almost complete. Tom tries to reason with Dr. Cantor to stop the virus from spreading, but he is too consumed by his desire for vengeance. In a moment of defeat, Dr. Cantor commits suicide, feeling that he has won. However, Tom is determined to undo the damage that has been done. He quickly removes Peter's body and takes control of it. He then contacts Bobby to team up and stop the virus from spreading any further. Together, Tom and Bobby work tirelessly to undo the damage caused by the virus. They manage to find a way to disable the virus and prevent it from causing any more harm. They also make sure that all the replacement robots are safe and functioning properly. In the end, Tom and Bobby are hailed as heroes for saving the lives of millions of people who use replacement robots. Tom felt a mix of relief and apprehension as he watched the virus successfully canceled. The danger of the replacement robots had been averted, but he knew that the process of disconnecting between the user and their replacement robot still needed to continue. He hesitated momentarily when he saw the yes or no button, knowing that yes meant canceled and no meant the process would continue. After a deep breath, he pressed yes, knowing it was the right thing to do. When the process continued, Tom couldn't help but think about the negative impact of the replacement robot on society. He saw how people had become detached and isolated, preferring to stay in their homes and communicate using electromagnetic waves. This way of life had caused human morals and values to disappear, and Tom knew that something needed to change. He made the decision to continue the process, knowing that it would mean cutting off everyone from their replacement robot. Tom believed that society needed to go back to the basics, to socialize and communicate face-to-face, like real humans. It was time to prioritize human interaction and connection over technology. As the process of disconnecting between the users and their replacement robots was completed, it became clear that VSI was indeed bankrupt. The project had taken years to build and now had no chance of being realized. However, this turn of events was not all negative. With no replacement robots to rely on, people were forced to leave their homes and interact with the world in their original form. They were free to socialize and communicate like real humans, something that Tom felt was vital for the preservation of human morals and values. Tom himself felt a sense of peace and happiness as he hugged his wife's real body, free from the constraints of technology. The moral of the story is that don't rely on replacement robots, because they might turn against you and make you do silly things like taking over someone else's body.